The moment my wife, Jessica, told me she was going on a girls' trip, something didn't sit right. She wasn't the type to take spontaneous vacations, let alone one without me. But she had it all planned out. Dates, hotel, even a full itinerary of spa days and beachside cocktails. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. I asked all the right questions, acting like the supportive husband. Where are you staying? Who's going? When did you all plan this? Her answers came quickly, smoothly, like she had rehearsed them. But one detail stuck with me, the name of the resort. We had been there before. A five-star paradise overlooking the ocean, known for its honeymoon suites and romantic packages. It wasn't the kind of place a group of married women would go just to catch up. And that's when I knew I had to find out the truth. I didn't argue. I didn't push. I played along, kissed her goodbye, and even helped her pack. But the moment she left for the airport, I was already executing my own plan. I booked a flight for the same destination, arriving a few hours before her. The resort was familiar, the scent of salt in the air, the sound of waves crashing just like I remembered. But this time I wasn't here for relaxation. I was here to confirm my worst fears. Checking in under a different name, I stayed low, watching the entrance from a distance. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe she really was just on a trip with friends. But then, just after noon, I saw her walk in. And she wasn't alone. A man strolled beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back. He whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, the kind of laugh she used to reserve for me. My grip tightened around my phone. My pulse pounded in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't innocent. Jessica had lied, and now I was standing in the perfect place to expose her. She had no idea I was here. But by the time I was done, she would never forget it. I forced myself to stay calm. Storming over and confronting them now would be too easy, too predictable. No, I wanted the truth. I needed undeniable proof. Jessica and her mystery man checked in without a care in the world. No hesitation, no looking over her shoulder. She was comfortable, completely convinced she had gotten away with her lie. I followed from a distance, keeping to the shadows. They were given a private villa, one of the resort's finest. The kind with a secluded plunge pool, champagne on arrival, and rose petals on the bed. A romantic getaway, not a girl's trip. That confirmed everything. I spent the next few hours gathering evidence, watching them stroll hand in hand along the beach, snapping photos of them sharing drinks by the infinity pool, recording the way she looked at him, the way she used to look at me. By the time the sun had started to set, my emotions were a storm inside me. Anger, betrayal, disgust, but also a strange sense of satisfaction. I had caught her, and now it was time to set the trap. I made my move. I walked to the front desk, calm and composed. I'd like to arrange a private dinner, I told them, flashing a polite smile. A surprise for someone special. They loved the idea. A beachfront table, candlelit, set for 3. I left instructions for Jessica and her friend to be escorted there at exactly 8 p.m. But I would be there first, waiting. When I returned to my own villa, I took my time getting ready. A crisp shirt, expensive cologne, the same one she used to compliment. If she was going to see me tonight, she was going to remember exactly who she had betrayed. At 7:50, I made my way to the table. The setup was perfect, soft music, waves crashing nearby, an intimate setting for what was supposed to be a romantic night. Except this wasn't going to be the night Jessica had planned. I took my seat and waited. At exactly 8 p.m., I saw them approaching. Jessica, smiling, dressed in a sleek, figure-hugging dress, her hand in his. They walked toward the table, completely unaware. And then she looked up. Her eyes landed on me. The color drained from her face. And just like that, the game was over. Jessica stopped in her tracks, her hand tightening around the man's arm as if holding onto reality itself. Her confident, carefree expression shattered in an instant. Panic flickered in her eyes. I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. "Jessica?" I said smoothly, swirling the wine glass in my hand. "What a surprise. Her companion, the other man, looked between us, confusion creeping into his face. He was tall, well-dressed, with that smug confidence of someone who thought he had won. I could almost laugh at how oblivious he was. Jessica's lips parted, but no words came out. She was caught and she knew it. I gestured to the empty seats at the table.
Come sit.
I reserved this table just for you. The man looked at her. Jessica? Who is this? She hesitated. I could see her mind racing, trying to calculate an escape, to salvage whatever lie she had been feeding him. I spared her the trouble. I'm her husband, I said, letting the word land like a punch to the gut. The man stiffened. His head snapped toward Jessica, eyes wide. Wait, what? Silence. Jessica's face burned red. Part anger, part shame, part sheer panic. I can explain, she stammered, reaching for my arm. I pulled away before she could touch me.
No, Jessica.
You don't get to explain. My voice was steady, controlled. But inside I was a hurricane. I turned to the man. Tell me, how long have you two been sneaking around? His jaw tensed. He looked at Jessica, realization dawning on his face. You said you were single. His voice was low, angry. I laughed, cold and sharp. Single? That's rich. She told me she was on a girls' trip. More guests in the restaurant were turning to watch. Whispers spread across the tables. The resort staff shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to step in. Jessica was visibly shaking now, her hands clenching the fabric of her dress. This isn't what it looks like, she blurted out, desperation leaking into her voice. I leaned in slightly, locking eyes with her. Then tell me, Jessica, what exactly does it look like? She was speechless. The man beside her, her little vacation romance, ran a frustrated hand through his hair. You know what? I'm out. I didn't sign up for this. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there alone. For the first time that night, I saw real fear in her eyes. She had lost everything in a matter of seconds. But I wasn't done yet. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and set the final part of my plan into motion. Because this wasn't just between me and Jessica anymore. Now everyone was going to know the truth. Jessica stood there, frozen, as the man she had been sneaking around with walked away without looking back. Her perfectly planned lie had crumbled in an instant, and now she was left standing in front of me, exposed. Her hands trembled as she reached for me again. Please, let's talk about this privately. I laughed. A short, sharp sound. Private? She didn't care about privacy when she planned this affair. She didn't care about honesty when she packed her bags for this romantic getaway, while telling me it was a girls' trip. I lifted my phone, tilting the screen so she could see. A video playing on loop. Clips I had taken over the past 2 days, her holding hands with him, their whispered conversations at the pool, the way she looked at him when she thought no one else was watching. Proof. Undeniable, unforgivable proof. Her breath hitched. No, please don't do this. I ignored her, stepping back and raising my voice slightly. Hey, everyone. My wife here has something to say. Heads turned. The murmur of quiet conversations faded. People at the nearby tables leaned in, sensing the tension. A few guests had already caught on to what was happening. Some whispered, others gasped. Jessica's face turned pale. Stop, she hissed, her voice barely audible. I pressed play. The video filled the air. Her laughter, her flirtation, the sweet nothings she had whispered to him. The very things she once said to me. Jessica let out a strangled sound, her hands shooting up to cover her face. A woman at a nearby table scoffed. Wow, a girls' trip? Really? Someone else muttered. That's brutal. A group of younger women, tourists probably, stared at Jessica with wide eyes, one of them shaking her head in disbelief. I could see it now, the shame sinking in, the realization that there was no talking her way out of this. No lie could fix what I had just done. She turned back to me, tears welling in her eyes. Please, let's just leave. We can fix this. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, I slipped my wedding ring from my finger and placed it on the table between us.
No, Jessica.
You already broke it. A single tear slipped down her cheek. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I turned and walked away, leaving her there, alone, humiliated, and exposed for exactly who she was. And I wasn't looking back. I didn't stop walking. I didn't look back. Jessica's voice cracked behind me, but I wasn't listening. I had given her everything. My trust, my love, my loyalty. And she had thrown it all away for a cheap vacation romance. The resort staff watched in stunned silence as I strode past them, my heart pounding. Not from sadness, but from relief. It was over. The lies, the suspicions, the late nights where she worked late, but never had anything to show for it. I had my answer now, and I was done. As I reached the resort's entrance, I felt my phone vibrate. A message from Jessica. Please don't leave like this. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a moment before pressing delete. There was nothing left to say. I booked the earliest flight out. As I sat in the airport, watching planes take off into the night, a strange sense of peace settled over me. The kind that comes when you finally let go of something that was never real to begin with. Jessica had played her game. She thought she had everything under control. She thought she was 2 steps ahead. But in the end, I was already waiting for her. And that was checkmate.